Inzwischen bin ich in Australien, aber die letzten 4 Monate war ich in Neuseeland unterwegs. Ich war auf ein paar Festivals, auf einem habe ich Jack kennengelernt, der diese wunderschönen Flöten hier herstellt. Ich habe ihn gefragt, ob er Lust hat, ein Video zusammen zu machen, und er hat mich dann zu sich und in seine Werkstatt eingeladen. Dummerweise ist beim ersten Tag, wo wir das Ganze gefilmt haben, am Abend meine Speicherkarte verreckt. Dementsprechend war einfach alles weg, und wir haben dann beschlossen, das Ganze am nächsten Tag nochmal zu filmen, und was dabei rausgekommen ist, könnt ihr euch jetzt anschauen. Das Video ist auf Englisch, unten könnt ihr einfach die automatisierten Übersetzungen anschalten, falls ihr nicht alles versteht. Ja, ganz viel Spaß!
My name is Jack Willow. I live in northern New Zealand, in Tonga, and I craft sacred instruments. Flutes, didgeridoos, tonga, yeah, beautiful tools of healing. So I started working with wood, in a very raw form. I'm a carpenter by trade, so a qualified builder, and been building for 7 years. So, started with the tools then, and in the last 4 years, had a few turns in life that really brought me to this realm, these beautiful sounds, and yeah, started playing with timber after renovating this house here, and created my first flute, 4 years ago. Yeah, it's wrong in so many ways. It's not tuned properly, but she plays. So I use all sorts of wood. I have a couple of really great contacts. So one's a local timber joinery business, and they work with a lot of beautiful exotic timbers. And I claim a lot of their offcuts, just recycled pieces, and through that I'm blessed to work with some incredible timber, rosewood, mahogany, ash, like really beautiful timbers for detailing. And then when it comes to the native, I get a lot of recycled stuff from building sites. Lots of remade purlins from up on the roof. It makes really incredible flutes. And then I have a contact up north, Riverwood Mills as well, that have been kind enough to supply me with some incredible rare timber that has been lost to the rivers. So in the early settling days here, forestry was a huge thing, and the trees were felled and all dammed up in rivers and then floated down the rivers, and some of the logs that went into the rivers sink, and the logs that have sunken get swallowed by the river. They get covered in sediment and end up in this anaerobic condition where they just don't fully degrade, and they're preserved and absorb these beautiful minerals and tannins and get these incredible staining that comes through. So I get a lot of really beautiful, rare, unique native timber from the north, and that's a blessing. I really love that connection. I really love the way those timbers speak. They've been in the water for a couple of 100 years at least, and still have resins in there from the trees. You can still smell it when you cut into it, but they're just so different. They've transformed so much, and it's pretty incredible. Like a lot of the logs, you look at them before they're milled, and they've got the X marks from when they were cut down by hand, and stamps on the base of the logs from which crew actually cut the tree down. They wouldn't get paid unless it was stamped, so there's a whole lot of story within all those pieces. Yeah, I think that's really, really beautiful. And it's like original New Zealand forests. These are very old trees, very strong, tough, beautiful trees. Yeah. So the inspiration for all of this really came from a few different places. How it came into my life to start with is something I've connected with recently, and this is like the very start. When I was inside mum, when mum was pregnant, habe, she was obsessed with Jethro Tull and bought a silver classical flute, and that brought her a lot of joy. And she only played in that time, so I never witnessed her play, as an adult or even as a child growing up. But I reckon that a part of this connection with the sound, what's drawn me into this, is that when I was still connected with her, that was something that really brought her a lot of joy. So there's me hooked up to her system, getting little dopamine hits when she's out playing the flute. So I think that's the real, the very early roots of it. But more recently, I played a didgeridoo. Have been playing for 15 years, and that kind of comes from my lineage. We've got Tasmanian Aboriginal blood in me, and that's on mum's side too. And really connected with the power of sound through that. Which led me into sitting on a sound journey with a dear friend down south, Seeker, and he's been playing sound journeys and holding space with sound for a very long time. And what I witnessed and what I felt in that sound journey was incredibly powerful, but not only powerful, but incredibly simple. And yeah, it really moved me and really inspired me to look into flutes. I love the sound, and the tongporo, a lot of the simple sort of older multi-instruments. So I had a little look at Seeker's treasure chest, his beautiful tools, his tonga that he has. And yeah, I really realised how simple a lot of them were, but how effective and how potent they were. So kind of start to finish quickly on the way that I create a flute, or the way that you'd create a flute, is to just start with whatever timber you want and cut a square block. 40 by 40 mil is what I usually do, and then half it and route out the channel inside. This is one I just started on, so you just route the two channels out, and then once that's all perfect, create your sound hole and glue it all back together. Then once it's glued together, you'll have a square flute that needs tuning. So we determine the correct tuning of the flute, cut it down to the right size with the ends on, and then tune it. And you end up with a square Minecraft flute, which you can still play, sounds beautiful, but it hasn't quite got the curves and the artistry in it. And then go ahead into shaping. So I use my Makita planer a whole lot to get the bulk of the timber off, and then my hand plane to get some of the tidier lines on it. Yeah, and then just sand it down and polish it up. It's quite a simple process, but there's lots of little nuances in it. And then once the flute's all finished, I'll go and carve the totem last, what fits, and really look at the angles and the curves in the flute and make something that matches. I burn the wood because it seals up the pores inside, like brings any oils that are kind of under the surface to the surface of the bore of the flute, and then gets rid of any little fibers that might stick up in the first layers of the timber. Anything that's inside the bore of the flute, inside the open channel here, will create turbulence and make a bit of a raspiness in the sound, which isn't what you want, well, depending on the style of flute. Yeah, so burning it just really helps seal everything up, and then I sand everything back to a really nice gloss inside. So yeah. So the way that the flutes are tuned is kind of a ratio between size and distance from where the sound's actually created. So the size of the flute determines the key, so the pitch. Your larger flutes will produce a deeper tone, and the smaller flutes are a higher tone. So nice small dainty flutes will be your nice high, quite sharp sounds, and the larger the flute, the deeper. And coupled in with that is the size of the bore inside the flute, so the hole that runs through the center of the flute. So the larger that is, the deeper tone and the more airy kind of resonance it has. So small little high flutes can be like tiny and really sharp and really up there in pitch, all the way down to big bass flutes. And then the actual tuning itself is distance. So it's a ratio between where your finger holes are in relation to where the sound's created. So the sound's created up here underneath the block, so your totem would usually sit on here, and then there's a splitting edge here where the air splits, which creates the sound, and then wherever your finger holes are will create that note. So the closer that hole is to where the sound's created, the higher the pitch, and the further away the deeper. And then also the larger the hole, the deeper, and the smaller the hole, the higher the pitch. Yes, there's lots of things to consider when tuning a flute. Lots of little variables to keep track of. But when it comes down to it, most of what I've been creating like minor pentatonic scale, so modern Western standardized music, and then branching out into different cultural scales. So this one here's an Aeolian scale, and then the jazz. And, playing around with getting different origin sounds out of these. I carve these totems for a few reasons. They really build a deeper connection for most people into the creation. I always carve the animals as a request, specific to different people, and everyone's got something that's near and dear to them, or some creature or some little critter that holds a specific energy for them. And I really believe that, in this process, the more connection I bring in, the stronger the connection is going to be for the person that receives it. So by carving these totems, I really love to bring a deeper connection for the clients into the piece, and the aim that they will dive deeper into playing and with that connection. These are powerful tools. They're not just instruments. They really help getting into an emotional space and release, and they really, really help kind of transfer energy in beautiful ways. And the more connected you feel to your friend, your little ally here, I think the deeper that space will go. So I really enjoy bringing this little bit of artistry in. And then for myself, it's exactly that. It's a beautiful way to play and really you know, sit into meditation and flow in the creation. It's really nice to play in like beautiful places, you know, like going next to a river or a lake or into the forest, into the bush, you know, somewhere in nature where you have your peace, but you're also immersed in everything around you. You know, when you can really drop in. I love being in the forest and in the water, and yeah, it's a really beautiful thing to go out into those places and play, but also play for those places. You know, play for the river or play for the trees. There's really big medicine in playing for something. I feel it really opens doors inside you and really moves energy in beautiful ways. And I do believe that, you know, playing for something, you are giving that thing energy as well. You know, it's tangible. You know, vibration is a physical thing. And yeah, I really feel like there is a lot of power in playing for something. Yeah, I really try to express, like, one, in the creation for myself. In the creation I express like a healthier lifestyle for myself, you know, in the artistry and in the work and in the time and the presence and the kind of meditation of it all. And then when you're talking about like the flutes going out into the world, I really preach that healing aspect of it, you know, bringing these tools into people's worlds that have the potential to change a life, have the potential to really get people to learn a little bit about their breath and about the way sound and emotion is directly connected. And yeah, I really hold that dear, the way that these have the potential to help and change people rather than just being an instrument and something that sounds nice. So yeah, as an expression, they are very much healing tools and tools of sharing. And for me, a better way to live. This is my magic stick. So I've created a few staffs, and it's something that is more than a prop. You know, they are also very powerful and very fun. And yeah, the artistry, you know, really letting the wood speak for itself. Yeah, I'm looking forward to creating more tools like this. Also, pipes. So this is my little wizard pipe that I've crafted, and moving forward as I progress into the next sort of chapters of life, I'm going to be doing a lot more small pieces as well. So I want to get into more pipes and the tongue board or the smaller mouldy instruments. So it's the porotiti, so they're very simple, but they make beautiful sound. It's actually almost in tune. So it's a little bit high, which means it's a little bit too short. So when I put my end on, I'll just mark it so it's a little bit longer. That end's quite long anyway, so I'll mark it. Yeah, and then cut that off and put that on. So through this journey, I've collected quite a few different beautiful musical tools, and I've put them all together in space, and now play sound journeys and hold space with sounds. What that looks like is, like an hour to an hour and a half of deep kind of meditation, meditative space, dropping in and sharing a variety of these ancient sounds. So usually, my sound journeys, I like to start off with kind of deep, sort of darker, heavier feelings, and the really, really earthy, really eerie, sort of haunting realms, and then work my way up into the didgeridoo yidaki and some heavy throat singing, into flutes and chimes and singing bowls, and really create a landscape for your mind and your energy to wander. And through that space, these are powerful tools that it really stirs a lot of deep stuff within us. The simplest way to kind of explain that stirring is, a lot of the time when someone plays one of these flutes or a didgeridoo or a kawawa, a beautiful moldy flute, your body reacts. You get goosebumps. You hear it, and most people will have a bodily reaction. So that's kind of just scratching the surface of that. So when you really give yourself time to let go in that space and receive those sounds, they can be a really, really powerful key to getting into kind of emotional depths. I've had the pleasure and honour of holding space for quite a few people that have had full-blown kind of trauma releases, like full wailing breath and like convulsion and everything coming out, and just through simply stopping and letting go and letting the sound carry you. So this is a big reason why I do this. These tools, they have a lot of power to heal. And my journey, though, they've healed me in many ways. But if I were to touch on that, my mother passed 7 or 8 years ago, and we were in a really good place, and she was like one of my best friends, and I thought that I had processed what that was years later. And it wasn't really until I got comfortable playing the flute that I ended up in a situation where I started playing, you know, like I said earlier, like playing for something is really important. So when I started playing for her, it just opened up this part of me that had been locked up in a little ball, and just opened the gates of grief and really let everything flow through. So through that experience, I really connected to the power of these tools, and now really share that as much as I can. Yeah, they I feel like the flutes are a really beautiful key into the emotional side of things, you know, like sadness and grief and kind of longing. Obviously they have a lot of bright, happy power too, but when you really get into those spaces that might be trapped up within yourself, yeah, they're really beautiful access to that. So the sound journeys are a powerful space for healing with sound as your vehicle. Yeah, I feel quite proud when I finish, you know, every flute. Everyone's different, everyone's unique. I try really hard to keep it that way. I've made a couple hundred flutes at least, and I don't think I've made any two the same. So yeah, it feels really great to finish, to birth another one of these tools into creation. Because, you know, not only have I made something beautiful and powerful, but, you know, it lends the potential of somebody else going through a similar experience that I have with these tools. I've been in some deep healing spaces with these and have guided others into similar spaces. So yeah, it feels amazing to finish a flute and send it off to its new owner in that way, just knowing that, you know, there's all the potential that, yeah, something as simple as this can change someone's life. Yeah, when it comes to the history of the flutes, I don't actually know that much. I've been really called to obviously crafting and playing, but I happily admit that I don't know too much about their kaupapa, you know, the story of where they're from. I've dived a little bit, but not enough to say that I have that knowledge or have obtained that knowledge. But it's something that I really look forward to learning, and it's something that I want to learn from the peoples. You know, I'd love to go to the Americas and sit in with some of the First Nations people and actually receive that transmission, you know, rather than just dive into a rabbit hole online. And it's the same with the didgeridoo as well. You know, Yadaki, I'm got part Tasmanian Aboriginal on mum's side, and you know, I read pieces here and there, but I wouldn't say that I know enough to kind of preach it and share it without actually receiving it directly. So this is part of my journey in the future, is to travel and, yeah, and really absorb those transmissions. Yeah. Failing's great. Failing is a necessary part of any process. Yeah, those mistakes along the way have definitely taught me the most. And not just the most in the craft, but the most, like, a really beautiful tool in my own being and my own development. And if you'd asked me a couple of years ago, it would have been tragedy and disaster and heartache and pain. And now, you know, I mess something up, it's opportunity. It's the chance for something to be different, or, you know, I feel like whatever that thing is that I'm working on, you know, that's not what it's meant to be if it doesn't work. So, you know, I kind of feel that in a way. It's like the flute's talked back a little bit. It's like, no, I didn't want to be this way, so let's start again, or let's turn this, you know, let's turn this fault into some form of artistry, you know, like change it into something beautiful. I think it's a really powerful lesson in that. You know, for me now, I just react with a little laugh more than anything when something goes wrong. You know, it doesn't bind me up, it doesn't hold me. You know, mistakes happen, and yeah, I think learning to turn a mistake into a feature is one of those ways that I think you kind of, you know that you're doing well in your craft if mistakes are no longer problems. You know, you kind of get to a point of understanding where, you know, no matter what happens, you, at the worst case scenario, you can start again, or it just evolves the process. I have a vision for the future, not too far away, with all of this, and it's not immense growth, it's not chasing the dollars in it, but a much slower paced lifestyle where I can really focus on the creation, you know, rather than having to craft X amount of flutes per week to cover the bills and you know, really take space and time where I can sit into a creation and spend, you know, a few weeks or a month on a single piece and really be in a beautiful space through that creation, you know, carve the whole bodies and really change the shapes and what, you know, what a flute is or what one of these flutes are, really adapt into that. And the way that I'm walking into that space is I'm actually packing up everything here and I'm moving into a truck. So I bought a house truck. I bought a truck that I'm converting into a house truck. And that's going to be a combination between my carpentry and my woodwork. So I'm going to make it as beautiful as I can. And I'm setting it up with a workshop under one side of it so I can craft on the move. And within that, I really also want to bring place into my creations. So working with local materials from places around New Zealand that are sacred or just vast and beautiful, or somewhere that resonates, and really bring the essence of a place into creation that can have as much time spent on it as it wants. Chasing the art and the pleasure and the satisfaction of creation rather than business. definitely advise people getting into any sort of craft, like flutes aside. I think that we, especially the younger generation, for the most part, have kind of forgotten that we can actually do things. I think a lot of people see something and just instantly write it off as too hard. But you know, we've got thumbs and fingers. We can use tools and learn, and we have an immense capability to adapt and adjust. And I think if there's anything that interests you, I highly recommend you try doing it yourself. Just get involved and give it a go. It's incredibly rewarding to create. You know, I think it's part of why we're all here. You know, we are here to create. And when it comes to the flutes, yeah, if you want to get her to make one, then do. Just start. Don't stress too much about, you know, how everything needs to be. Just, you know, ask for help, work it out, and it doesn't have to be perfect. And in time, if you want to go down that route, you will learn and you'll grow and create something amazing. When it comes to playing, definitely learn to play. Like I've said already so many times, like there's so much medicine in playing, and there's so much connection to self and breath and to your environment and even people around you. You know, it's a really powerful thing. It really has changed my life, and through doing this, I've heard so many stories and introduced so many people to these tools where they've said similar things. You know, they have the power to change. So yeah, if you're curious, learn, play. It's an amazing, amazing thing to do.
So, ich nochmal. Ich hoffe, euch hat das Video gefallen. Falls ja, gerne kommentieren, Like da lassen, meinen Kanal abonnieren und auch an Freunde und Bekannte weiterschicken. Ich mache die Videos an sich für mich und finde es auch cool, einfach Leute kennenzulernen und die bei der Arbeit begleiten zu können. Allerdings ist das Ganze auch sehr viel Arbeit und ich fände es einfach schön, wenn sich das ein paar mehr Leute anschauen, was dabei rumkommt. Falls ihr Interesse an so einer Flöte habt, schaut einfach mal bei Jack auf seiner Instagram-Seite vorbei. Ich packe alle möglichen Links nach unten in die Videobeschreibung, Links zu mir, was ich sonst noch so mache und auch alles, was Jack so macht. Falls ihr Fragen habt, ihr könnt ihm auf jeden Fall gerne schreiben. Super netter Kerl, der antwortet euch sicher. Und ja, kauft euch eine Flöte, baut euch selber eine Flöte, keine Ahnung, macht irgendwas Cooles mit Holz oder so. Mal sehen.